Roma Wines, R-O-M-A, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Roma Wines present Suspense.
Tonight, Roma Wines bring you the MGM star, Miss Marcia Hunt, as star of Pink Camellias, a suspense play produced, edited, and directed for Roma Wines by William Spear.
Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills, is presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those excellent California wines that can add so much pleasantness to the way you live, to your happiness in entertaining guests, to your enjoyment of everyday meals. Yes, right now a glassful would be very pleasant, as Roma Wines bring you Miss Marcia Hunt as Martha in Pink Camellias. A remarkable tale of suspense.
It's not often a woman can look back and see the events of her life like tiny, confused pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, meeting finally and neatly to form one picture. I can do that tonight. I can see so clearly, and I must make you see, too. If only I have time, if only I have enough moments left. The years I spent with Aunt Abby were long and dull. She was an invalid. Her heart was bad, so she lay in her bed day after day, making the most of it, ordering and complaining. Well, I was an orphan, helpless, so what could I do? Aunt Abby took me in, and I worked for my keep. Worked hard. It was I who kept the house running. I who went into the village 2 miles away to buy the cakes and candy she grew fat on. It was I who sat by her bed and read the sickening love stories to her. I bore the brunt of her frenzy at being old and ill and unwanted by men. And it made her happy to see me grow more afraid and less attractive. Then, about a year ago, one afternoon, when we were having tea...
Martha, these aren't the cakes I like. Really, you are stupid. It was the little chocolate ones I wanted, the ones with the center scooped out and the frosting inside.
They didn't have any, Aunt Abby. I asked for them.
Well, if they can't do better than this, we'll change to another pastry shop. Caramel icing. Ugh.
Shall I begin reading now, Aunt Abby?
I don't think much of this candy either. Oh, here's a piece I like at last. Read? Oh, no, Martha, not now. I have some news for you.
News?
Yes. We're going to have a guest. A young man. Does that excite you?
Who, Aunt Abby?
Oh, Martha, you are a cold fish. Well, as a matter of fact, he's a relative of yours. A very distant one, and not really a blood relative at all. He's my second husband's sister's son. Let's see. Well, what does that make him to you?
Why, I suppose
never
he's
mind figuring it out. You are so literal.
When is he coming?
Just a minute. I'll look in his letter again. Let's see now. Yes, I thought so. It's the day after tomorrow he'll be here.
Shall I tell John to see that there's a room ready for him?
Yes, do. Oh, dear. This silly boy, Neil. He says here my second husband talked about me all the time. I guess poor Walter never did get over me.
How old is he?
Neil, 35-ish, I'd say. He was about 20 the last time I saw him. Too handsome to believe. But don't you go getting ideas about him, miss. Whether he's handsome or not, I don't want you making a fool of yourself. Anyway, Martha, you're just not the type of woman he'd look at twice.
She went into detail. She compared me to herself and told me no man who had known her had ever forgotten her. And I looked at her, lying there, fat and old with a fleck of chocolate on her chin. Neil came 2 days later. I watched him make over Aunt Abby. I watched him hold her hand too long and smile too sweetly at her. And I knew from the first moment that Neil Garson was weak and without a shred of principle. I knew he wanted something from Aunt Abby, and that he would flatter her and fawn on her until he got what he wanted. But I also knew that for the first time in my life I was in love. As foolishly in love as a heroine in one of the cheap love stories I had to read aloud.
Well, that'll do for today. I do wish, Martha, that you could learn to read with some expression.
I'm sorry, Aunt Abby. I'm no actress.
You're the dullest girl.
Oh, I think she does very well, Abby. And I don't think she's dull.
Of course she is.
No, I think she has great depth, unexpected depth.
You're talking like a fool, Neil.
Do you want me to do anything else for you, Aunt Abby?
No, you can leave now. You do get on my nerves sometimes.
Oh, just a minute, Martha. Why is it you always wear your hair pulled back so tightly?
My hair?
It looked wonderful falling to your shoulders. It's a beautiful shade of red, you know. Like her mother's, isn't it, Abby?
Neil.
My mother? How do you know anything about my mother? Why, even
Abby
I never...
told me about her. Showed me a picture, too.
But, Aunt Abby, you never showed me a picture of her. Where is it?
Back in the trunk where it belongs. Now, Neil, my dear, would you please leave us alone? I have something to discuss with Martha.
Oh, please,
Oh,
I'd like to
certainly,
see
Abby.
it. I've never seen it.
Now, Missy, I have something to tell you that I don't expect you to like.
Yes.
You know that Neil is a writer.
No, I didn't know.
His things are very artistic. He's read some to me. Oh, but of course it's hard to make a living when you write things that most people are too stupid to appreciate.
Yes, I guess it would be.
Well, I've decided that he shall have his chance to do what he wants to do without having to worry about scrabbling for a living. I've left him half my estate.
Only half?
Don't be sarcastic, Martha. There'll be plenty for you.
Of course there will. I don't need much. I'd have no way to spend a great deal of money.
I do believe you mean it. But you're right. You'll just go along the same way after I've gone. You'll certainly never marry.
No. No, I won't marry. Aunt Abby, my mother wasn't plain like I am, was she? She was beautiful, wasn't
Ah,
she?
you're going to start that again.
But why won't you tell me about her?
Because she wasn't like us. She didn't fit into our family at all. No, you're not like her, Martha. And you can get down on your knees and thank heaven that you're not.
It was after dinner that night Neil asked me for the first time to walk in the garden with him. I wasn't fool enough to believe that it was for any romantic reason, but I snatched at the chance to be alone with him.
Let's sit on that bench by the birch tree.
All right.
There. Nice night.
Mm-hmm.
Cigarette?
No, thank you.
Well, don't mind if I smoke.
Mm-mm.
This is a nice spot.
Yes.
Abby tells me you know about the will.
Yes.
How do you feel about it?
Well, I hadn't thought. There's enough left for me.
Is that all you want? Just enough?
What else would I want?
You could be beautiful, you know.
Oh, you're teasing me.
If only I had money. Or if you had, or even better, if both of us had, I'd teach you how to get some fun out of life.
You would?
Would you like having me teach you, Martha?
Oh, There's no use talking about it. Neither of us has any money and probably won't have for years.
How bad is her heart, really?
As bad as it's been since I've known her. She could die any minute, or she could live for years.
Yes, I suppose she could. Flowers are lovely out here. Garden is good.
Yes, Bennett's worked for Aunt Abby for years. He loves the place.
I was in the greenhouse the other day when Bennett was getting out some of that stuff to put around the rose bushes. Arsenic compound it was. That's why the roses are so perfect. Seems the poison kills all the worms.
Yes.
You ought to wear flowers, Martha. You'd be lovely with camellias in your hair. I must get you some. Oh, but then that would be silly, wouldn't it? For me to go all the way into town to buy you flowers when the greenhouse is full of them. But I'd like to see them in your hair.
Maybe I'll wear some someday, Neil.
You'll be lovely, Martha.
For Suspense Suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you as star Marcia Hunt in Pink Camellias by Charmian McGurk. Roma Wines' presentation tonight in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Between the acts of Suspense, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. If any week in the year deserves the name of Hospitality Week, this is it. Christmas to New Year's, the golden days of the year, when welcome is the watchword and gracious hospitality is everywhere. Says famed hostess Elsa Maxwell, I keep the festive spirit bright by entertaining with Roma California wine. Whether I serve glorious amber Roma sherry, warm, heartening Roma port, rich golden Roma muscatel, or flame-bright Roma Tokay, I know I have chosen a wine my friends thoroughly enjoy. Like all Roma wine, these Roma dessert wines are true wines, crushed from choicest grapes, grown in California's finest vineyards, then unhurriedly guided to glorious taste perfection by Roma's ancient winemaking skill, bottled at the winery. So, to add warmth to your welcome, or for a perfect ending to your holiday dinners, serve a fine Roma wine. Get Roma wine tomorrow. Only Roma gives you so much taste luxury for so little. Remember, because of Roma's uniformly fine quality at low cost, more Americans enjoy Roma than any other wine.
And now, Roma Wines bring back to our Hollywood soundstage Marcia Hunt as Martha in Pink Camellias, a play well calculated to keep you in suspense.
I've never felt so alive as I was planning my first murder. Neil noticed the change in me, the new confidence in myself. He was fascinated. He was afraid of me, and yet he had to be with me. He was weak, Neil was. He was too weak to do his own murder. But I was strong enough.
About time you showed up. Sent for you a half hour ago.
What did you want, Aunt Abby?
For heaven's sake, take these roses and put them over on the other table. Oh, that's better. They were smothering me. Bennett brought them in this morning. Really, we must get rid of him. He's so old, he depresses me. I hinted to him this morning that it was time for him to go, but you'd better make it definite at the end of the month. I like young people around me.
All right, Aunt Abby.
And if it's not too much trouble, Miss, I wish you'd go into town this morning and get me some of my little cakes.
I intended to.
Well, I'm surprised to hear it. You've been mooning around here lately like a lovesick calf, never doing anything for me.
Yes, Aunt Abby.
Any funny business and you can get out and get a job or you'll really have to work. I've made things too easy for you.
Yes, Aunt Abby.
And when you go into town, try to get the cakes I like for once.
Oh, yes, I'll be very careful to get them, Aunt Abby. The little chocolate ones with the icing in the center. The cakes she loved best. The icing in the little hole in the center was soft and chocolate brown. The arsenic lightened it hardly at all, but then it took so little. Hardly more than enough to kill one of the worms on the rose bushes. I dressed carefully that day. I wore a dress that made my eyes green and brought out the red of my hair. I have never looked so well. Just before I got the tea tray lunch, I walked out to the greenhouse and picked 2 camellias of the faintest pink. They looked lovely in my hair.
Well, where have you been?
Here's your tea, Aunt Abby.
I've waited long enough. But you got so few cakes. Only enough for today. Honestly, Martha, I have few enough pleasures in life. I should think you'd show me some what's in that dish? Strawberries?
Yes, Bennett sent them in for you.
Oh.
They're the first of the season.
He's trying to get around me so he can stay. Well, it'll do him no good. But put plenty of cream on them. That's it. And a cake, Martha.
Here you are, Aunt Abby.
Where's Neil?
He's working. He'll be in later.
Is this all the strawberries?
Yes, but Bennett said there would be more in a few days if you want them. He has them set up in boxes in the greenhouse.
Just one more cake, Martha. That's it. Why are you all dressed up?
I'm not.
It won't do you any good. You'll never get him. Martha.
You see, Aunt Abby, you didn't run out of your cakes. There were plenty there. All you'll ever want. There was no investigation into Aunt Abby's death. It was surprising, the doctor said, that she hadn't been carried off by a heart attack before. There were no surprises in the will. She had left small bequests to the servants and the rest of the estate to be divided between Neil and me. Very soon now we'd have our money. And I'd have Neil. I had a hold over him now, for the knowledge of murder shared is as strong a bond as love. For a while, Neil was in the best of spirits. But gradually, as we waited for the money, he changed.
A few more days in this house and I'll go off my head. Nothing to do but sit around these gloomy rooms and read musty old books.
You're jumpy, Neil.
Well, what if I am? There are things that would make anyone jumpy.
I know.
You don't know. You like remembering. When that little smile comes on your face, I know you're remembering.
John's coming.
What do you want, John?
I brought tea, sir.
Well, put it down here.
Beg pardon, Miss Martha.
Yes, John.
I thought I'd better speak to you about Bennett.
Bennett? What about him, John?
Well, he hasn't been himself, you might say, since your aunt died. I don't know the last time I saw him eat a mouthful of food. He just sits and stares into space. And today's down on his back.
Really sick?
Half-starved, I'd say, miss. And brooding about something.
Brooding?
I don't know what about, miss. He doesn't talk.
Oh, I'll call the doctor. And I'll go out and see him myself. Thank you, John.
Yes, miss. I'll tell him you're coming.
Bennett knows.
Shh. Don't be a fool. Of course he doesn't know. No one saw me in the greenhouse.
He knows, I tell you.
I'll go and talk to him. Maybe I'll take him some hot soup.
You're kind, Martha. You're so kind. But he won't drink your soup. He knows.
Sorry, I can't get up, miss. It was good of you to come.
The doctor will be in to see you tomorrow, Bennett. But can't I do something for you now? Is there something you'd like to eat?
No, thank you, miss. No, thank you.
Is something bothering you, Bennett? Would you like to tell me about it?
Your aunt was going to let me go. After all these years, she as good as told me I was through.
Oh, but she left you enough to live on.
She was going to take my flowers away, but she didn't manage it. She died before she could get rid of me.
Yes.
Yes. That poison works fast on bugs in the garden, don't it, miss?
Yes, it does.
Did it work fast on her, too, miss?
Bennett.
It just came to me all at once. The stuff was out in plain sight there.
Bennett, you can take care of the flowers for as long as you live. I won't sell the house.
I am too tired, Miss Martha. But I feel better for talking to you. You and I are the only ones that know. Oh, your aunt was a mean woman, miss. I didn't care much for her. She never paid any attention to how pretty the flowers was. The only time she was ever nice to me was when I took her something I'd grown for her to eat. Oh, don't feel bad about her, miss. Her and the bugs, they should have been killed.
I sat up with Bennett all night until he died. He didn't speak of my aunt or the poison again, and I never knew how he had guessed. Bennett's death did something strange to Neil. It made him really hate me. I've been looking for you, Neil.
I wish I never had to see you again. What kind of poison did you use on old Bennett?
I've told you 1,000 times I didn't kill him.
You make my skin crawl, Martha.
That's too bad, because you're going to have to be around me for the rest of your life.
I've been thinking, Martha.
Yes?
I'm getting out now.
You'd better wait until things are settled.
I've thought things out, Martha. I had nothing to do with Abby's death. There's no way they could prove I had.
They could prove it as well about you as about me, Neil.
I'd tell them you did it. I'd tell them just how you did it.
No. You're the logical one to suspect. You're the one who came here and made a hateful old woman decide to leave you a fortune. If I'd been after the money, I could have killed her long ago and got twice as much. Oh, no, Neil. You mustn't tell the police anything. They might hang you for it.
Not when they learned about your mother.
My mother?
Yes, that beautiful mother of yours. And you're like her, Martha. You're so like her, with your hair down around your shoulders and the pale pink camellias pinned in it. That lovely mother who killed your father and herself. That beautiful, insane mother.
Even in the first moment of shock, I knew it was true. Neil wasn't lying. That was why I had never been told about my mother. That was why murder had seemed so right and easy for me to do. Neil thought now he was the leader once again. I let him think it. I pulled my hair tight at the back of my head and shrank back into the colorless woman who couldn't possibly be a threat.
Say, Martha.
Yes?
Come in here a moment, will you?
What is it, Neil?
I wish you'd ask around and find a good doctor for me to see. I'm having trouble with my eyes.
Just enough to make his eyes burn and smart. Just enough to make a little rash come out on his skin. Not enough yet to let him know he was dying. The night came, though, when I decided to finish my work. Tonight. I planned a wonderful meal. Squab and wild rice and strawberries from the greenhouse. We had coffee in the drawing room. Neil took sugar in his. Neil took sugar that was loaded with death. I drank my coffee black. Another cup, Neil.
Thanks. I don't expect to sleep anyway, Martha.
Why don't you?
I'll be thinking about you and how beautiful you look. I'm glad you made yourself lovely for me.
I'm happy you think I'm lovely.
Are we friends again?
Of course.
I'm sorry I had to be so rough on you, but you were getting out of hand there, you know.
Maybe I was.
I just want you to know, Martha, that I've never felt about any woman the way I feel about you. If things had been different...
I thought I sickened you.
I was afraid of you, the way you were then. You were so cold.
I wasn't cold. I loved you very much.
And now?
I don't feel quite the same.
It's too bad. We would have been wonderful together. But you can understand how I feel, can't you? I mean, knowing about...
Yes, I can understand. What's the matter?
The pain. Nothing.
Oh, dear.
What is it?
I knew I'd forget something.
Oh, what's that?
Flowers for my hair. Oh, well, there's some over here in this vase. I brought them in this afternoon. There. Do they look all right, Neil? I haven't a mirror.
Oh, yes, but they're like the ones you...
They're camellias, my favorite flower. These are the last of the pink ones.
Pink camellias.
You look so strange, Neil. What is it?
You look like you did just before...
Before I killed Aunt Abby?
Yes.
I seem to look my best when I'm killing someone.
Martha.
But of course, Neil, you're dying. You've been dying for a long time. But it hurts now, doesn't it? It burns, doesn't it?
Martha.
I can never feel this way again, Neil. I can never love anyone the way I loved you. And I can never hate the way I've come to hate you. It makes it more exciting to really hate the person you killed. I didn't hate Aunt Abby, you know.
Martha, no.
I despised her, that was all. I think you have to love someone before you can hate. Aunt Abby was the first person I killed, so I was interested in watching her die. Oh, but it wasn't like this. And she didn't know that I was the one who brought death to her. You know, though, don't you, Neil? You know. Neil? Neil? Oh. But it didn't take very long. It didn't take long at all. I finished eating my strawberries, then I left him, crumpled there in the drawing room. John would find him and call the police. But it was while I was walking up the stairs to my room that I knew I wouldn't be able to tell them how I had worked things out. I had intended to be here to tell them. I thought I would have years of life in a quiet little room where I could remember everything. They don't execute the insane, you know. But as I was walking up the stairs, I knew I wouldn't have years. I knew I only had a little time. Bennett and his strawberry. Bennett killed Aunt Abby, too. Just the way I would have done it myself. I know how he felt as he took the little green stems off the strawberries and worked the poison in where the fruit was white against the deep pink. He must have been happy as he worked. I know how he felt because I'm like him, like that frail little man, and I'm like my mother. All people who kill are alike. I should have known Bennett was like me. If I had known, I wouldn't be dying now. I'd have all the years to remember in. And Abby will be pleased at the way things happened, and Neil will laugh. Neil will laugh.
Suspense.
Presented by Roma Wines, R-O-M-A. Made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Before we hear again from Marcia Hunt, the star of Pink Camellias, tonight's suspense play, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. Before you enjoy Suspense again, New Year's Eve will have come and gone. Make this the first New Year of peace in 5 long years, a New Year to remember, with the gay continental smartness of Roma, California champagne. Shimmering, pale gold, brilliantly bubbling, Roma champagne adds life, distinction to any party. Serve Roma champagne with dinner or at any time. And for a magnificent Roma champagne cocktail, try this simple recipe. A cube of sugar, a dash of bitters, fill with chilled Roma champagne, and you have a superb taste treat. While you can, get several bottles of Roma champagne tomorrow. No other sparkling wine but Roma champagne can give you such lavish luxury of taste at such low cost. Insist on Roma, R-O-M-A, Roma champagne, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world.
This is Marcia Hunt. It has been a great pleasure to appear for the Suspense audience. Next Thursday, Mr. Paul Henreid will appear as a man who waits for 20 years to commit a murder and then commits it in such a way that the law cannot touch him. Sound like the perfect crime to you? Well, we'll all have to listen to find out. In the meantime, a most happy New Year to you from all of us here.
Marcia Hunt appeared through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, producers of They Were Expendable. Next Thursday, same time, Roma Wines will bring you Mr. Paul Henreid as star of Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills.
Produced by William Spear for the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System. Roma Wines, R-O-M-A, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Roma Wines present
Suspense. Tonight, Roma Wines bring you Mr. Paul Henry, the star of The Angel of Death, a suspense play produced, edited, and directed for Roma Wines by William Spears.
Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills, is presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those excellent California wines that can add so much pleasantness to the way you live, to your happiness in entertaining guests, to your enjoyment of everyday meals. Yes, right now a glassful would be very pleasant as Roma Wines bring you Mr. Paul Henry in a remarkable tale of Suspense.
December 31st, New Year's Eve. I shall identify myself as John Forsyth, my true name, as I have no reason to fear its being known nor to assume one of a different character. My early life has no place in this narrative, save only to point out with the utmost objectivity that I have always been possessed since my tenderest youth of extraordinary intellectual powers. As witness, my acquisition at the age of 16 of degrees from not one, but three of the leading universities of Europe, where, despite my British nativity, I spent my formative years. But this fact has no special significance other than as it applies to those events which were set in motion on another New Year's Eve in London 15 years ago. For it was on that evening, as I had planned some weeks before it should be, that I stood outside a door and listened for confirmation of the relationship I knew existed between my best friend and my wife.
Oh, darling, darling, darling.
It's all right now, Pam. It's all right. It's all over now.
Yes,
Are you happy?
yes, now that we've decided. Yes, almost for the first time since I can remember.
I know, darling. I suppose we should feel sorry for him, but I can't, not after the way he's treated you.
Raymond, what do you suppose he'll do?
It doesn't matter, darling. Tomorrow we'll be on the Atlantic Ocean, and within a month we'll be on my uncle's plantation in Brazil, where he couldn't find us if he'd looked for 100 years.
No, I suppose it doesn't really matter.
How long will it take you to pack?
Oh, an hour.
Well, I ought to be back by then. I just got to pick up the tickets and a few things.
All right, hurry, darling.
I will, darling, I will. Goodbye.
Goodbye, darling.
Good evening, my dear. Why, what's the matter, Pamela? You look as though you'd seen a ghost.
Oh, why, nothing. You startled me, that's all. You said you were going out of town for the holidays. And you don't usually come in by the back door.
You needn't be alarmed. I shall only be a moment. I forgot something.
Can I get it for you?
Your anxiety for my every wish is touching. But no, thank you. By the way, Pamela, have you any last words?
Any what?
We may not see each other for a while, you know.
John, what are you talking about? What's the matter with you?
Oh, my dear, sometimes I wonder if I married you out of infatuation for your beauty or pity for your stupidity.
Oh, John, please.
Pamela, where do you suppose we shall all be, say, within the month?
Does it really matter so much?
No, I suppose it does not. Within the month, I was on trial for their murder.
You are Henry Jenkins, proprietor of the Crown and Nile, number 17, Buxton Street.
I'm that one, sir. I am. Henry Jenkins, sole owner and proprietor of...
Now, will you kindly repeat the words spoken by the prisoner in the dock while in your place of business several weeks ago?
Yes, sir. Excuse me, sir. About 2 weeks ago one night, Mr. Forsyth there, who's a steady customer of mine, although not what you'd call a sociable man.
Yes.
Well, sir, all me other customers had gone home, and I was asking Mr. Forsyth to leave also, just so I could close up me shutters, you know. When all of a sudden he looks up at me and he whispers, kind of hoarse-like. Jenkins, I did it. I finally did it. Not knowing what he did, sir, I naturally asked him what he did.
And what did the prisoner tell you, Mr. Jenkins?
He said, sir, wanting me to keep it quiet, sir. I found them together, and I killed him. And then he laughs in a crazy way and added, and Jenkins, I've hid the bodies where no one will ever find them. Well, that's what he said, sir, so help me a tit.
I saw him burning what looked to be a lot of bloody clothes. In the furnace it was. And he didn't try to hide them either. Just stared at me kind of odd-like and went right on as brazen as you please, he did.
He wasn't worried at all. He said the two of them won't ever get away together, except if they are dead.
I heard him say it on the stair landing one night and several other times in their rooms. Pamela, he says, if you don't stop leering at Raymond Tillotson with those evil eyes of yours, I'll see the two of you in your graves. I warn you.
The court feels that it is its duty at this time again to remind the prisoner that he has so far made, nor allowed to be made by counsel in his defense, no cross-examination of witnesses, nor rebuttal to the charges made by the prosecution of any kind, and that this attitude can only result adversely to his cause. The prisoner is therefore once more given the opportunity at this time to make such rebuttal. Now, does the prisoner wish to do so?
No, Your Lordship, I do not.
Does the prisoner wish to make any statement of any nature whatsoever in his defense?
I should merely like to ask the prosecution one question, Your Lordship.
Yes? What is it?
Has the prosecution found the bodies?
Well, the prisoner wishes to know if the prosecution has yet produced the bodies of the alleged victims of the crime for which he is on trial.
Well, no, Your Lordship. We have not.
That is all. Thank you. To kill them had been my plan and my intention, naturally. But not in the usual stupid way such things are done, where men gamble their own lives against the lives of those whom they destroy. Every faculty of my intelligence revolted against such a thought. And so for me, the gambler's risk was needless. So I planned it. It was therefore without fear or question that I stood before the court to hear the verdict which, in all the writing of it, I had contrived against myself.
Order!
John Forsyth, the court has given most careful consideration to the fact that the bodies of the named victims have not been presented to this court as due evidence and a surety of murder, a fact which admittedly must alter the circumstances of guilt. But this Crown Court, no matter how deeply it desires to aid you, cannot but recognize the fact that you have allowed every shred of evidence and element to point to you as a cold-blooded killer. Under such circumstances, questionable though they may be, I can do only as the King's Lord directs me to do, tempered with the mercy of His Majesty's court. I hereby sentence you to no more than 20 and no less than 10 years at hard labor for the suspected and willful murders of your wife, one Pamela Felice Forsyth, and one Raymond Elton Tillotson. And may God protect the Crown and the jurisprudence of this court of His Royal Majesty.
10 to 20 years. It was perhaps a bit more than I expected, but I was content. And it may be that there was even the trace of a smile upon my lips as I left the courtroom. Certainly, it was justified, if only by the looks of awe and admiration turned in my direction by the spectators. Clearly they recognized my genius, and I knew they were thinking of the countless lesser men who had failed in their efforts to hide even one dead body, whereas I, apparently without effort, had successfully hidden two.
For Suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you as star Paul Henry in The Angel of Death by Alan Cameron. Roma Wines present nation tonight in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Between the acts of Suspense, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. With the holiday excitement over, most of us are glad to enjoy evenings at home again, taking it easy and economizing. What a perfect time to serve Roma California Sherry. Yes, glorious golden amber Roma Sherry adds so much to happy hours at home, yet costs so very little. More Americans every day make Roma Sherry first call for dinner. You'll find Roma Sherry ideal for entertaining, too. Delicious anytime. For Roma Sherry is a happy, mellow wine with tempting fragrance, satisfying, natural sweetness, and superb nut-like taste. Roma Sherry, like all Roma wine, is a true wine, unvaryingly good always. Crushed from choicest grapes, grown in California's finest vineyards, then unhurriedly guided to tempting perfection by Roma's ancient winemaking skills. Bottled at the winery. Get Roma Sherry tomorrow, now selling at lowest prices in years. Insist on Roma, R-O-M-A, Roma wine, for uniformly fine quality at low cost. Remember, more Americans enjoy Roma than any other wine.
And now Roma Wines brings back to our Hollywood soundstage Paul Henry as John Forsythe in The Angel of Death, a play well calculated to keep you in suspense.
It was thus that I began my prison term, and my association with William Waters, the sallow-faced, ill-favored little man who was to be my chief source of amusement and mental exercise for a long time to come, and to illustrate still further the inevitable triumph of the high intellect over all obstacles and surroundings.
So you're the great John Forsythe, eh?
You've heard of me, then?
Not off, I haven't. The luckiest beggar that ever cheated the hangman.
Luck? There is no such thing as luck.
No? And how is it you're sitting here safe and sound, and out as free as air in 15 or 20 years, instead of stretching your neck at the end of a rope, eh?
I'm here because I choose to be here. That is all.
Because you choose to be, eh? Now, tell me, Forsythe, just between us two, how did you do it?
By using my brains.
And there's many another tried that before and been caught up with.
Simply because they did not really have any brains to start with.
No, it's luck, I tell you. Bad luck like mine. You want to hear the worst bit of luck ever ruined a man's life?
Well, if you wish to call it that, why not?
It was like what happened to you in a way. A sweetheart, Agnes her name was, with the biggest, bluest eyes. Oh, the prettiest little thing you'd ever hope to see.
And you'd killed her?
Oh, I didn't mean to. It was the usual, you know, and I caught her dead to rights. But she laughed at me. That was the trouble. Threw it in my face, she did. Next thing I knew, something snapped. And when me head cleared, there I was sitting on the floor beside her, crying like a baby. And her lying there with her pretty blue eyes staring out of her head and her pretty mouth all twisted. The red marks there on her throat. The marks of these two very ends where I'd strangled the life out of her.
You weren't unlucky. You were stupid. You killed her without planning it. Well, and what did you do with the body?
Cemented her into the wall of the cellar. And the bloke next door had a gas heater. Exploded and blew out the old ruddy wall between us, it did. By the time I got home, there was farming and bobbies all over the place. And there was Agnes, what was left of her, lying right out in the middle of the cellar floor for all the world to see.
The truly intelligent man foresees every possibility and guards against it.
Who could foresee a thing like that?
I could.
You could?
I stand before you as the living proof of it. In 10 or 15 years, I shall be free because I'm intelligent. Whereas you will rot and die here because you are stupid.
Oh, pretty clever, ain't you? Know just about everything there is to know, don't you?
No, not everything. But quite a lot of things. For instance, I know something about that cough of yours.
What about it?
The color of your skin, the look about your eyes, the way you breathe. I hope you're not afraid to die, Waters.
Oh, Ravage, what are you talking about?
Have you ever heard of retribution, Waters?
What?
Oh, the inevitable fate that pursues and at last destroys the criminal mind. Vengeance, you might call it.
Rot. You don't think anything's going to happen to you and me, do you?
And not to me, Waters. For the intelligent man foresees and prevents even that. But to you, Waters, most certainly to you.
Oh, indeed. And who's going to do all of this?
Oh, he is known by various names, Waters, but best known as the Angel of Death. Retribution, the Angel of Death. Absurd, was it not? But a most purposeful absurdity. For the intellectual stimulus so necessary to remaining mentally alert during the prison years ahead was here delivered into my hands. An experiment, and one almost impossible under any other conditions. And William Waters would be my guinea pig. An experiment to determine just how far a man might succeed through sheer superiority of intelligence in breaking down and destroying the mind and the body of another by the simple power of suggestion. I suggested nothing directly, merely a word here, a glance there, drops of water wearing away the stone.
I got a fever again tonight, haven't I, John?
No, a touch perhaps, but that is all.
The head feels up. It's that blasted cough, what does it?
No, you mustn't worry about it. It's very bad for people with your condition to worry.
What condition? What condition, John?
Why, nothing. People with a cough like yours, people who feel, indisposed, that's all.
Oh. What's that book you're reading, Mikey?
Just a book. A scientific book that I got from the prison library.
What sort of a scientific book?
Oh, a general book on medicine. Things like that, you know.
Let me see it.
Oh, no. You wouldn't understand.
Here, give it here.
No, please, give it back to me. You wouldn't be interested.
Oh. You had it open at this place here, didn't you? This is what you've been reading, ain't it?
Well, yes, among other things.
Tuberculosis? Is that what I got, John?
Tuberculosis? Oh, don't be silly. There's nothing seriously wrong with you.
John, you've got to tell me. I don't want to die.
No, you're not going to die. You take care of yourself.
Why should it come to me? I've always been healthy. I'm not old yet.
Of course you are not. You're just imagining things.
Imagining things?
You're worrying too much, that's all.
Well, what makes you think I'm worried?
Oh, I don't know. Sometimes when you're asleep, tell me, do you ever have dreams?
What sort of dreams?
Oh, well, about the past or...
Oh, you mean about her?
Yes. Do you ever dream you see her lying there on the floor with her eyes bulging out of her head and her mouth all twisted and her tongue all black and swollen?
John, don't stop it!
And your fingers digging into her throat?
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
the matter here?
Oh, he seems somewhat disturbed in his mind this evening, guard.
Oh, his mind, eh? Oh, that reminds me. Doctor said we was to try to prevail on him to get out of his bunk tomorrow and get outside, get a little exercise and fresh air.
Oh?
You tell him, eh?
All right, yes, I will.
What was you two muttering about?
Oh, he was just telling me what the doctor said about you.
What?
Oh, he wants you to stay in your bunk and get plenty of rest. The time was drawing near, I knew. The time for what I had planned as the culmination of my experiment. Waters was having periods of definite delirium. But I waited. I waited for them to become more pronounced. Then, one night, when I'd listened to him tossing and muttering for hours in his bunk, I crossed over in the darkness.
Oh, no. Wait. There ain't time yet. I don't have to go yet. No.
William Waters.
Yes.
I've come for you, William Waters.
What?
She sent me, William. She sent me with her eyes staring out of her head, with her black, swollen tongue.
No.
I'm the angel of death.
I'll kill her. I'll kill her.
Take your hands from my throat. Take your hands.
I'll kill you.
Let me quiet you. What's going on here?
I had to hit him. The man is out of his mind. He thinks I'm some angel of death or something.
Yeah, you. Come on. Up on your feet. Come on there, Waters. Now, what's the matter with you?
Buster, it's you what done this to me.
I told you he was out of his mind.
It's you what's done it to me. I'll see it now.
Come on now, you're coming with me.
I'll kill you, Buster.
Come on.
I'll get out of here after this for a moment. They've been 600 years.
Come on.
I'll kill you. I'll kill
you. It was interesting while it lasted. And I've always believed that given a little more time, I could have ended my experiment successfully. But I'd other plans to make now. Plans for the day when I would be free. And at last it came. At last I was walking away from the prison gate a free man. And now began my search. It was not difficult. It led me at last to Paris, to a small apartment, where I went tonight, December 31st, New Year's Eve.
Yes?
Good evening.
Well, good evening, sir. Did you wish to see someone?
Oh, you don't recognize me?
Why, I do, of course, but, are you a friend of Pam's?
I'm indeed.
Who is it, darling?
It's a friend of yours, dear.
A friend of both of you.
John.
What? Yes, in fact, your husband, my dear, and Raymond's best friend.
John, it's been...
15 years, yes. You only returned to Paris recently, did you not?
Yes, a short time ago.
And you never knew that I was convicted and sentenced to prison for your double murder, did you?
Murder?
Oh, that was quite as I planned it. I knew where you were, but the authorities did not.
John.
But perhaps you have heard of a curious legal technicality which provides that a man cannot be convicted twice for the same crime. You see, I've already paid for your murders. And now I've come to collect an ancient debt.
Put down that gun.
I then walked calmly from their rooms. I made no effort to hide my face, my trail, or my identity. I can now defy every element in life and in law. After 15 years, I've committed the crimes for which I've already paid my debt to society. I shall mail this letter to the police, who may give it to the newspapers, or whoever wants it. Although it is now a matter of indifference to me if the world remarks upon my cleverness or my patience. For my life is complete. No man has ever known such happiness. John Forsyth. Yes, come in, Madame Leclerc. That's the letter now that I wished you to mail for me.
I've come to you, John Forsyth.
Waters.
I'm not Waters any longer.
How did you get out?
They said I was insane, so I hadn't been responsible when I killed her. Then they said I was cured, sane again. And then they let me out. But there was one thing they never knew. They never knew who I really was.
What are you talking about?
That's why I've come to you, John Forsyth. I am the chosen messenger of an higher power.
Look here, Waters,
Die, John Forsyth!
And the story ends with a newspaper clipping. Let me read it to you. Paris, January 1st. This gay metropolis spent one of its quietest New Year's Eves in recent years. In all Greater Paris, there were only 2 recorded deaths by violence, both of which, by a strange coincidence, occurred within a few yards of each other. The first was the fatal shooting by an unknown assailant of an Englishman, John Forsyth. The second victim, unidentified, had apparently leaped from a window or roof of the same dwelling occupied by Forsyth. Police were at a loss to explain a weird black silk robe and cape worn by the man. Geneviève Leclerc, concierge of the building, alleges to have heard a voice repeating an English phrase, "I am the angel of death," just before the suicidal leap. However, this can hardly have any bearing on the case, since the said phrase was undoubtedly uttered by New Year's revelers in the neighborhood. Suspense.
Presented by Roma Wines. R-O-M-A. Made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. How much more pleasureful any meal becomes when Roma wine is served. Yes, a fine table wine such as Roma California Burgundy makes any food taste better, brings out all the flavor, lends romance and friendly companionship to the meal. America's famed hostess, Elsa Maxwell, says, "My simple secret for gracious and enjoyable dining is to serve my guests Roma Burgundy." It's so easy to make your meals more delicious, more exciting, as Elsa Maxwell does. Because Roma wine costs so little, anyone can serve it often. Complement your next dinner with the fruity fragrance and appetizing piquant taste of red, robust Roma Burgundy. Get Roma Burgundy tomorrow. Now selling at the lowest prices in years. And you get extra savings when you buy Roma in the half-gallon and gallon size. No wine but Roma offers you so much for so little. Insist on Roma. R-O-M-A. Roma wine. Made in California for enjoyment throughout the world.
Paul Henreid appeared through the courtesy of Warner Brothers Studios and will soon be seen in their production, Devotion. Next Thursday, same time, Roma Wines will bring you Mr. Phil Terry as star of Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills.
Produced by William Spear for the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
KQW, San Jose, the Columbia station for the San Francisco Bay Area.
Now, Roma Wines. R-O-M-A. Made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Roma Wines present Suspense.
Tonight, Roma Wines bring you Mr. Joseph Cotton as star of The Pasteboard Box, a suspense play produced, edited, and directed for Roma Wines by William Spear.
Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills, is presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those excellent California wines that can add so much pleasantness to the way you live, to your happiness in entertaining guests, to your enjoyment of everyday meals. Yes, right now a glassful would be very pleasant, as Roma Wines bring you Mr. Joseph Cotton in a remarkable tale of suspense.
Save it, Walter. Taking all of that I can. I'm through, you understand? Through.
Sorry, sir. Couldn't help but overhear you.
What's the difference now?
I hope you haven't quarreled seriously with your brother.
Quarreled? What else have I ever done with him but quarrel?
Oh, I realize he's a bit difficult at times, sir, but I'm sure he has your best interest at heart.
Yeah, well, from now on, he can stop worrying about my best interest because I'm getting out of his life tonight for good. Grabbed my hat and coat and rushed out of the house looking wild-eyed and distracted. I caught a taxi right in front of the door and told him to go to the 23rd Street ferry. On the ferry, I stood by the stern rail. I walked up and down, puffing hard on a cigarette, looking out into the fog and acting nervous and jumpy. I leaned against the rail and bowed my head down on my arms. 2 or 3 people standing around out there began to look at me. Then, when we were about a third of the way out in the stream, I took off my coat, had my name and address written with indelible ink on the label, and my hat that had my initials stamped in gold on the sweatband, and laid them down on the deck, climbed up on the rail, and jumped. It was as easy as that. A fight with my brother that was loud enough so the houseman couldn't help but hear it. A jump off the 23rd Street ferry, leaving plenty of identification behind. An easy swim back to shore where I had planted my dry clothes. And a phone call to the news to report my own suicide. It was just as easy as that. On Friday afternoon, I waited across the street until I saw Williams, the houseman, leaving for his usual weekend. And then I let myself in the front door and walked back to the study. Come in, Williams. I thought you'd gone. Hello, Walter. Jack. What's the matter, Walter? You look as though you'd seen a ghost. Jack, well, haven't you seen the papers? I thought you were dead. Yeah, I changed my mind. Jack, how could you? How could you have done such a thing? I didn't. I just went swimming, that's all. Don't tell anyone I'm here. Yes? This is Mr. Parcell. Yes, I told you once it was broken. Well, I'm sure I don't know. I know certainly I didn't break it. Yes, it's still in the box. Well, I'll send you the pieces if you like. Well, that's a little late, I'm afraid. Well, it doesn't matter anyway. It's the principle of the thing. Besides, I'm going out of town. Yes. Yes, I suppose there'll be someone here to receive it. All right. Silly. Goldfish bowl. What? Oh, you know, I ordered a larger one, and it arrived this morning, all smashed up, and they were arguing about sending me a new one. There it is in that big square box. You can see for yourself it's smashed. That's certainly like you, Walter. At the last minute, you worrying about a $2 goldfish bowl. What do you mean, the last minute? Well, you just said over the phone you were going out of town. Yes? What's the idea? Well, Jack, I was terribly upset when I heard that, I thought... I'll bet. Where are you going? Well, I hadn't quite made up my mind. I just wanted to get away. Taking quite a lot of luggage for just a little trip out of town, aren't you, Walter? Clearing the papers out of your desk, too, huh? Well, I simply thought I could get a little work done while I was away. Or were you thinking of staying away for a while because somebody might ask questions about why I jumped in the river and the answers might make you look like a heel? Of course not. Such an idea never entered my head. You always were, Yella. You'd run away from anything. Jack, that's quite enough. That's right. Those are the truest words you ever spoke. And I wouldn't bother about packing luggage anymore if I were you. What? Why not? Because where you're going, you won't need any luggage. What do you mean? This is what I mean. Jack, don't. Oh, you're choking. You're choking. You won't need any luggage anymore, brother. Like Cain felt about Abel, I suppose. There he was, lying on the floor, looking as though it was me lying there, only it wasn't. It was him, and I was glad. The funny thing about twins, being one yourself, you notice them more than most people would. And all the twins I'd ever known had got along good, extra good. But not me and Walter. I hated him ever since I could remember. I hated him because the old man was about the only one who could tell us apart. And it was Walter he always called to him, not me. I hated him for what he got and what I didn't. I hated him because he was always good and I was bad. I hated him because the old man left everything he had to him, and it wasn't hay either. And because I couldn't do anything about it on account of that forgery rap I'd taken. And I hated him for the way he'd taken care of me since I got out of jail and thrown it in my face every chance he got. I hated him for all those things and a lot more. And I was dead. And I'd killed him. And I was glad. You don't believe me? Brother, I felt great. I went over to the mirror and combed my hair over to the left side like his. And I locked the study door and went upstairs to the bathroom and shaved off my mustache. He was clean shaven. Went back in the bedroom and put on one of his suits. And when I got through and stood in front of the big, full-length bedroom mirror, I looked the spitting image of him. No one in the world could have told that I wasn't Walter Parcell. In fact, I was Walter Parcell. I went back to the study. All I had to do now was dispose of the evidence. But first, I couldn't resist looking around. It was mine now. All mine. Those stupid fish he had all over the place in glass tanks, the books he never read, and all the rest of it. In his desk was a list of all the bonds and securities and the number of his safe deposit box and the combination to the safe and the bank book, all nice and neat. And on the desk was a picture of Helen Winters, the little vixen he was engaged to. And I made a mental note that I'd at least have to call her before I left town. It looked funny if I didn't. I might even do more than call her. Well, there was no use stalling any longer. It had to be done. I got the body over my shoulder and carried it upstairs and put it in the bathtub. I locked the bathroom door from the inside. Then I got to work.
For Suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you as star Joseph Cotton in the Pasteboard Box by Joe Grenzebach. Roma Wines' presentation tonight in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Between the acts of Suspense, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. Here's a simple secret about entertaining that has won compliments for many a hostess. The next time you have dinner guests, keep them pleasantly occupied during that hour before the meal by serving Roma California Sherry. Serving Roma Sherry before dinner has become a friendly American custom. Yes, glorious golden amber Roma Sherry with tempting fragrance and intriguing nut-like taste is the perfect first call for dinner. And you'll find Roma Sherry equally pleasing with a tasty evening snack, a delightful wine to serve any time. Roma Sherry, like all Roma wine, is a true natural wine. Crushed from choicest grapes, grown in California's finest vineyards, then unhurriedly guided to taste perfection by Roma's ancient winemaking skill. Bottled at the winery for unvarying goodness. Delight your family, your guests, with delicious Roma Sherry, now selling at the lowest prices in years. Insist on Roma, R-O-M-A, for uniformly high quality at low cost. Remember, more Americans enjoy Roma than any other wine.
And now, Roma Wines bring back to our Hollywood soundstage Joseph Cotton as star of the Pasteboard Box, a play well calculated to keep you in suspense.
It was early morning before I was able to leave the house. I walked to the nearest subway with a suitcase, a heavy suitcase, because it was also weighted down inside with old furnace grates and sash weights. I got off the subway at Dyckman Street and took the Dyckman Street ferry to Jersey. About halfway across, the suitcase that I had on the rail, as though it was something to lean on, just sort of slipped out of my hands into the river. I looked mad and then foolish, and the people that saw it snickered behind their hands. Well, that was that. About an hour later, the same thing happened on a 42nd Street ferry. And the mortal remains of Walter Parcell were gone. All but his head. At first, I hadn't known what to do with that head. It wouldn't fit into either of the suitcases, no matter what I did. And then I thought of that box. That big pasteboard box with the goldfish bowl had come in. It was still sitting there in the corner of the desk. I weighted it and wrapped up the outside in the paper it had come in and started out again. The 14th Street ferry this time. I had it balanced up there on the rail just like I'd had the others, and then...
Hey, look out! Hey, it's all right, mister. I got it.
I let go.
Oh, I've got it. Huh? What's the matter?
I thought you dropped it.
Oh, no, here it is. Hey, that was close, all right. Another second and it would have been gone for good.
Yeah, they've been gone for good, all right. Walking across 14th Street on the way back from the ferry, people were pushing behind me, and the next thing I knew, I was in a department store. I was walking down one of the aisles just to keep moving and not to attract attention when it hit me right between the eyes. There was another box, a box just like mine. It was sitting up there on one of the counters, and next to it was an old guy looking at some bow ties. I walked over and put my box on the counter next to his, and I pretended I was waiting for a clerk. Then, after a couple of minutes, I pretended to change my mind. I picked up the box, his box, of course, and started for the door.
Hey, I say there. I say, sir, you've taken my box.
Oh, what do you mean, your box? Let go of me.
But it is. It's my box. You left yours there on the counter.
Oh, you crazy. Let go, I tell you.
What's the trouble here?
Why, this man's got my package and won't give it back.
Oh, shoplifter, eh?
No, it's not that. He left a package of his own there, but he insists that mine is his.
What's in it?
A parchment lampshade. I bought it in your furniture department just now. The girl will confirm that.
All right, what's in yours?
Mine?
Yes, what's in your box?
Why,
Well, we'll open it up and see.
No, you can't.
Only way to tell, open them both up. If you think this is your package...
No, wait, I made a mistake. It isn't, Here, now give me mine.
Oh, just a minute.
Give it to me.
Just a minute.
Give it to me.
Oh, give it to him. It's his. I saw him put it there.
Oh, very well,
Thank you.
Why, he acted like a madman.
Maybe I did act like a madman. I guess I did because I was pretty close to panic when I got out of that store. I started walking. I just walked. I don't know how or for how long or what, but all I could think of was, what'll I do now? What'll I do with it? What'll I do with it? I didn't snap out of it until I found myself a half block from home, and not knowing how I got there, all I knew was I still had that box and I had to get rid of it. Then I saw the sewer. A corner sewer with a big wide opening. I crossed over to it as though I were going to step on the curb. Stumbled and gave it a good kick. Slid in and I heard it fall. I got home. A half hour later, I was just beginning to relax. And and the doorbell rang. I went out in the hall, switched on the vestibule lights, and opened the door. There stood a couple of kids.
Guess this is yours, ain't it, mister?
What?
We were standing across the street when you dropped it. Then we saw you come into this house. That's how we know. We got some string and a fish hook and pulled it out. It is yours, ain't it?
No.
You mean it ain't yours?
No, I never saw it before in my life. Now beat it.
Oh, then we can open it, huh, Johnny?
Wait, no.
I don't know. Maybe we ought to take it to the cops.
Here, you give that to me. Give it to me.
But you said...
I made a mistake. I didn't recognize it. Now give it to me. Beat it.
Well, aren't you glad to get it back?
Huh? Oh, sure. Here.
Thanks. Gee, $5. There must be diamonds in that box.
It was back. The kids were hardly down the steps before I was out the house without a hat, a coat, or anything running toward 2nd Avenue. I didn't care who saw me now. Didn't dare stop for a taxi. I had to keep running. I couldn't stop for a second. I kept on running up 2nd Avenue to 59th Street, going out onto the bridge. I was still running, and I didn't stop until I got nearly to the middle. And then I blew it. Out over the railing as far as I could. I watched it arc down and saw the white splash in the darkness as it hit the water and a couple of 100 feet below. It was gone. No matter what, it was gone. Somehow I got home. But it was daylight before I could get myself to sleep. Monday morning, I felt better. Got up fairly early and went down to study and make my plans. Seeing the picture of Helen Winters on the desk reminded me I ought to call her. If Walter left town without even calling the girl he was supposed to marry, it wouldn't look so good. There was no answer, so I hung up. Then I rang for Williams, the house man.
Yes, sir?
Oh, Williams, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I'm going to have to let you go.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear it, sir. If it's anything I've done.
Quite the contrary. I've found our association most pleasant, but the death of my brother has been quite a shock, of course.
Of course, sir.
I'm going away. I don't know how long I shall be gone, or when I shall be back, or if I shall come back here at all. So I thought it was best this way.
Yes, sir. When will you be leaving, sir?
Within a few days. There's no hurry, but I wanted you to be able to make your own plans. I'm making arrangements this afternoon to sell the house and the furniture, and the associations here are painful, you understand.
I understand, sir.
My brother Jack had his faults, of course. We all do.
I know how you feel, sir.
But after all, Williams, he was my brother.
Yes, sir. Blood is thicker than water.
You're so right, Williams. That first performance left me feeling pretty satisfied. The next one wasn't so easy. But for things to look right, it had to be done. So after breakfast, I went down to police headquarters.
Well, what can we do for you, Mr. Parcell?
Why, I'm going away for a while, and I wondered if you had recovered my poor brother's...
his body?
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. We haven't, Mr. Parcell.
Oh, I see.
Now, while you're here, though, there is something you might look at for us.
Very well.
This way, please. It's just a routine matter of identification, but we like to have these things on the record, you know.
Of course. Something you found?
Yeah, that's right. Fished it out of the East River this morning.
The East River?
That's right. The East River.
For a minute, I just stopped breathing. Because it wasn't in the East River that I jumped off the ferry. That was on the other side of the island. The East River was where I'd thrown it. And then I was all right again because I saw what he had. A pair of trousers. Mine.
You recognize these, Mr. Parcell?
Oh, yes. Those are the trousers my brother wore the night he died.
Uh-huh. Probably kicked him off and tried to swim to shore. Yeah, well, thanks, Mr. Parcell. That's all we need.
Very well, but you said the East River, and it was the North River where poor Jack...
Oh, carried down by the current and around by the tide. Caught in the propeller of a ship, maybe. Funny things happen in the waters around this island, Mr. Parcell.
Yes. Yes, I imagine they do. That was all right, too. When I got out of headquarters, I went across the street to a pay station and phoned Helen Winters again. There was no answer. I hung up. Then I went uptown to the bank, Walter's Bank. I'd never been in it before in my life, and I'd been wondering how I'd know who to be chummy to, but I needn't have worried about that.
Well, good morning, Mr. Parcell.
Good morning.
We were all terribly sorry to hear of your bereavement, Mr. Parcell.
Yes, thank you. As a matter of fact, that's what brings me here.
I see. Something about the estate?
Oh, no, but I shall want to get into my safe deposit box.
Why, certainly, Mr. Parcell.
Thank you. By the way, do you happen to know what my cash balance is? Just roughly.
Roughly between $32,000 and $33,000.
I'll want $5,000 in cash. I'll make out a counter check. You can forward the rest when I've made banking connections in Mexico.
Oh, Mexico? Well, do you expect to be in Mexico for any length of time?
Oh, yes, for quite a length of time.
Oh. Shall we go down to the vault, sir?
Oh, yes, by all means. When I got out of the bank, it was raining, but I didn't care. I liked it. I was walking on air anyway, and I decided to walk home that way. It's nearly 30 blocks, and I was soaking wet when I got there, but what's a little rain to a guy with $100,000 in his pocket? Front door wasn't locked. In I went and hung up my hat and coat in the hall and was wondering whether to have a nice hot bath before calling Helen Winters. And when I saw it, a box, that horrible pasteboard box that had come back. For a second, I thought my mind had gone. But there it was, sitting on the desk. Wet and soggy, and the limp paper peeling off as though it had been fished out of the river just that minute. And then I remembered I hadn't seen it sink, and what the cop had said about tides and currents. Then the doorbell rang. I rushed to the window. There was a police car outside. For the moment, I thought of grabbing up the box and running, escaping out of the back somehow, and then I knew that wasn't any use. It didn't matter. If it was some sort of a police plan, it didn't matter anyway. And if it wasn't, if it was just another one of those terrible coincidences, there was still time. Whatever they wanted, I could bluff it through, and there'd still be time. I pulled myself together and went out and opened the door. Yes?
We're from headquarters.
Yes.
You're Walter Parcell?
Walter Parcell? They thought I was Walter Parcell. They didn't even know he was dead. That was all right. There was still time.
I said, are you Walter Parcell?
Yes, I'm Walter Parcell.
You know a young woman named Helen Winters?
Oh, Helen Winters, of course. She's my fiancée.
Then I'm afraid you're going to have to come along with us, Mr. Parcell.
With you what?
Helen Winters has been murdered. And I might as well tell you now that anything you say will be used against you. The evidence is pretty conclusive. That you murdered her.
I didn't. I couldn't.
We found her this morning in the coroner report. She was killed Friday night. You were seen entering the place that night, and you were seen leaving. A gun that we traced to you was found in an ash can a block away. Now, what do you expect us to believe, Mr. Parcell?
Wait a minute. There's a mistake. There's been a terrible mistake. I'm not Walter Parcell. I'm his brother. I'm his brother, Jack.
The one who committed suicide?
Yes. Only I didn't. I changed my mind. I swam back to shore. I came back here, and I found Walter. He was dead. He killed himself. And now I know why. Don't you see? Because he murdered the girl.
You didn't report it. Where's the body?
The body?
Yes, the body.
No, that's it. Now, look. Everyone knew I quarreled with Walter, and so I thought they'd pin it on me. I thought they'd say I killed him. So I disposed of the body. Then I took his place. We're twins, don't you see?
Mr. Parcell, I've been in this business a long time, and I've heard some beauties. But I never had a man ask me to believe one like that.
It's true. I swear it's true.
All right, then where's the body?
I threw it in the river with the weight.
I thought so. Come on.
Now, wait a minute.
Come on.
I can prove it. I can prove it.
Yeah, how?
Because I've still got his head.
His head?
That would prove it, wouldn't it? Or wouldn't it?
It certainly would.
Come on. I'll show you. Here in that box, see?
I'd open it.
Sure. I threw it in the river, and it got back here somehow. It's still wet, see?
That doesn't look like anybody's head to me, Mr. Parcell. To me, it looks like just an ordinary goldfish pool.
That was it, of course. The goldfish bowl he'd been arguing about on the telephone when I came back and found him packing up, running away, because he'd murdered his girlfriend. So, I don't know where Walter is now in those swirling tides and currents, but I know one thing. Wherever he is, he must be laughing his head off.
Suspense. Presented by Roma Wines. R-O-M-A. Made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Before we hear again from Joseph Cotton, the star of the Pasteboard box, tonight's suspense play, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. Each day, more Americans are switching to Roma and discovering what a wonderful help Roma wine is in making simple home entertainment successful. The reason? Taste. Superb taste for only pennies a glass. And, says famous hostess Elsa Maxwell, there's a Roma California wine to delight everyone. Rich, ruby red Roma port, mellow, nut-like Roma sherry, smooth, golden Roma muscatel, and flame-bright Roma Tokay. I give my guests their choice and share with them Roma's goodness. Each of these fine Roma wines may be served with cake, fruit, nuts, or other tasty snacks when guests drop in. Many prefer these wines with dessert. You'll find them delightful anytime. Get Roma wine tomorrow. You'll be amazed how little such taste luxury costs. For Roma wine, famed for uniformly fine quality, is now selling at the lowest prices in years. Insist on Roma, R-O-M-A, Roma wine. Made in California for enjoyment throughout the world.
This is Joseph Cotton. I've enjoyed my appearance on Suspense as I always do. Next Thursday, a unique actress whom all of us here in Hollywood love and admire, as you do, will be the leading lady on Suspense, Dame May Whitty. Miss Whitty will appear as a kindly lady whose advertisement requesting genteel part-time employment involves her in a predicament which threatens first her freedom and then her very life. I'm sure we'll all want to make it a point to listen. And by the way, if you feel that the character I played tonight was a little, what shall we say, extreme, please forgive me. I've never played twins before, and I guess I just lost my head.
Joseph Cotton appeared through the courtesy of David O. Selznick, in whose production Duel in the Sun he will soon be seen. Next Thursday, same time, Roma Wines will bring you Dame May Whitty as star of Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills.
Produced by William Spear for the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California.